Commander Zix slammed his four fists against the metal table in frustration. The holographic display showed another failed mission report. His elite hunting team had returned from planet Xerion, empty-handed, once again. The Galactic Beast Collection. Agency had hired Zix and his crew for their reputation. They were known across 12 star systems as the best creature hunters money could buy. They had captured everything from crystal spiders to void whales, but the dragons of Xerion were proving impossible. Captain Vorth entered the command room, his purple skin darker than usual with exhaustion. His breathing was heavy, and his uniform was torn in several places. Behind him followed the rest of the hunting team, all looking defeated. Zix turned, his black eyes toward his captain, and waited for the report. He already knew it would be bad news. The team had been gone for 2 weeks this time, their longest mission yet. Vorth placed his weapon on the table and shook his head slowly. They had tracked a family of dragons to the northern mountains. The creatures had been feeding near a river when the hunters arrived. Everything seemed perfect for a capture. The hunting team had used their best equipment, energy nets that could hold a starship stun, weapons powerful enough to drop a giant. The tranquilizer darts were loaded with enough sedative to knock out an elephant for days, but when they fired their nets, the dragons simply vanished. The nets passed through empty air and crashed into the rocks. The stun beams hit nothing but shadows. The tranquilizer darts stuck harmlessly into tree trunks. Zix listened to the report with growing anger. This was the 15th failed attempt. His reputation was being destroyed. His clients were demanding results. The agency was threatening to cancel his contract. The dragons seemed to know every move the hunters would make before they made it. They disappeared like smoke whenever the team got close. Some hunters claimed the dragons could read minds. Others said they could see the future course. The team tracker spoke up nervously. He had studied the dragon signs for months. The creatures were incredibly intelligent, much smarter than any animal they had hunted before. The dragons left false trails and set up decoy feeding grounds. The dragons also seemed to communicate across vast distances. When hunters found one dragon, others would appear to help it escape. They worked together like a military unit with perfect coordination and timing. Zix had invested everything in this mission. His ship, his crew, his savings were all tied up in the dragon hunting contract. If he failed to deliver at least one dragon, he would be ruined. His crew would abandon him, and he would never work again. The alien. Commander pulled up files on his computer screen showing the incredible value of Xerion dragons. A single adult dragon could sell for enough credits to buy a small moon. The creatures were almost extinct, making them extremely valuable to collectors rich. Aliens across the galaxy wanted dragons as pet status symbols. They would pay any price to own one of these magnificent beasts. The dragons were beautiful, intelligent, and had amazing powers that made them perfect exotic pets. But catching them was proving impossible. The hunting team had tried everything. Traps, ambushes, aerial attacks, even digging underground tunnels. Nothing worked. The dragons always escaped. Some of Zix's crew were starting to believe the dragons were magical creatures beyond the reach of normal hunting methods. They whispered that maybe some beings were not meant to be captured. Zix refused to believe in magic. There had to be a scientific explanation for the dragons' abilities. He ordered his team to study their equipment for malfunctions. Maybe their technology was being interfered with somehow. The crew spent days checking every weapon, every scanner, every piece of hunting gear. Everything was working perfectly. The equipment was not the problem. The dragons were simply too clever to be caught. Meanwhile, on the other side of Xerion planet, a young human woman named Lisa Walker was tending to her small garden. She had no idea that alien hunters were trying to capture dragons. She lived quietly and peacefully far from any settlements. Lisa was not entirely human, though her grandmother had been a space elf who married a human explorer. This mixed heritage gave Lisa slightly pointed ears, pale skin, and an unusual connection to nature that she did not fully understand. Animals seemed drawn to Lisa in ways that puzzled her. Birds would land on her shoulders without fear. Wild creatures would approach her garden and eat from her hands. She could sense the emotions of living things around her. Lisa had moved to Xerion 5, years ago seeking a simple life away from the crowded space stations where she grew up. She bought a small piece of land and built a modest house with her own hands. Her farm was located in a peaceful valley surrounded by tall mountains. The soil was rich and red, perfect for growing vegetables. The climate was mild with gentle rains and warm sunshine. Lisa felt more at home here than anywhere else. She grew tomatoes, corn beans, and other crops that she sold to passing traders. Lisa made enough money to buy supplies and pay her bills. She did not need much to be happy. Her simple life brought her peace and contentment. Every morning, Lisa would walk through her garden checking on her plants. She would talk to them softly, encouraging them to grow strong and healthy. The vegetables seemed to respond to her voice, growing larger and more vibrant than normal. In the evenings, Lisa would sit on her porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in brilliant colors. She would listen to the sounds of night creatures beginning their activities. She felt connected to the natural world around her. Lisa had heard stories from traders about strange alien hunters in the area, but she paid little attention to such tales. Her farm was isolated and peaceful. She could not imagine why anyone would want to disturb this quiet corner of the planet. The mountains near her home were known to be dragon territory, but Lisa had never seen one of these legendary creatures. She sometimes heard distant roars echoing through the valleys, but assumed they came from other types of animals. Lisa did not know that her peaceful life was about to change dramatically. The failed alien hunting expedition was creating ripple effects across the planet. Events were already in motion that would bring dragons directly to her door. Commander Zix was planning one final desperate attempt to capture dragons. He was gathering intelligence about every part of Zerion, looking for any weakness he could exploit. His crew was preparing for their most ambitious hunt yet. The stage was set for an encounter that would change everything. The failed alien hunters and the peaceful human farmer were about to meet in ways that none of them could predict or imagine. Lisa Walker woke up to the sound of thunder, but when she looked outside, the sky was clear. The strange rumbling continued, coming from the direction of the eastern mountains. It sounded like a massive landslide or earthquake. She quickly dressed and grabbed her emergency medical kit. Lisa had learned basic first aid during her years on space stations. She always kept supplies ready in case travelers needed help. The remote location of her farm meant she was often the only person available to assist people in trouble. The rumbling grew louder as Lisa hiked toward the mountains. Following a narrow trail through dense forest, she climbed higher into the rocky terrain. The sound seemed to be coming from a deep canyon that cut through the mountainside. As she got closer, Lisa could hear something else mixed with the rumbling. It sounded almost like crying or whimpering, but much louder than any animal she knew. The sound made her heart ache with sympathy for whatever creature was in. Distressed, Lisa reached the edge of the canyon and looked down into the rocky depths. What she saw took her breath away. 3 small dragon hatchlings were trapped under a pile of fallen boulders. Their wings were twisted at painful angles and dark blood stained their colorful scales. The baby dragons were unlike anything Lisa had ever imagined. One had deep blue scales that shimmered like ocean water. Another was bright green like fresh spring leaves. The third was golden yellow like warm sunlight. Each one was about the size of a large dog. Lisa did not hesitate. She scrambled down the steep canyon wall using roots and rocky ledges to climb safely to the bottom. Her mixed elf heritage gave her natural agility and sure footing on the treacherous slope. The trapped dragons saw her approaching and tried to crawl away in fear. They made small frightened sounds and weakly flapped their injured wings. Lisa spoke to them in a soft, gentle voice, trying to calm their panic. She moved slowly and carefully, keeping her hands visible. The dragons watched her with large, intelligent eyes that seemed almost human in their expression. Lisa could sense their pain and terror, but also their desperate hope for rescue. Lisa began moving the smaller rocks first, working her way toward the larger boulders that pinned the dragons down. The stones were heavy and sharp, cutting her hands as she lifted them. The work was exhausting, but she did not stop. The blue dragon was freed first. Lisa carefully examined its injuries, finding a broken wing and several deep cuts. She used supplies from her medical kit to clean and bandage the wounds. The dragon remained still, letting her work. As Lisa treated the blue dragon, the other two watched quietly. They seemed to understand that she was helping their companion. The green dragon even moved closer, making soft clicking sounds that might have been gratitude. Lisa freed the green dragon next. This one had fewer injuries but was clearly weak from blood loss. She gave it water from her canteen and some dried meat from her pack. The dragon ate hungrily and its eyes grew brighter. The golden dragon was trapped under the largest boulder. Lisa could not move it alone. She looked around the canyon for something to use as a lever. Finding a long metal pipe that had fallen from somewhere, she wedged it under the rock, using all her strength. Lisa managed to shift the boulder just enough to pull the golden dragon free. This one was hurt the worst, with multiple broken bones and severe cuts. Lisa worked quickly to stabilize its injuries. All three dragons were now free, but they were too weak and injured to fly or even walk properly. Lisa faced a difficult decision. She could not carry 3 injured dragons up the canyon wall alone. She decided to make multiple trips. First, she fashioned a rough stretcher from branches and her jacket. She carefully lifted the golden dragon onto it and began the slow climb back up the canyon wall. The climb with an injured dragon was incredibly difficult. Lisa had to stop frequently to rest and adjust her grip. The dragon remained perfectly still, as if it understood that any movement might cause them both to fall. After reaching the top, Lisa gently placed the golden dragon in a shaded area and climbed back down for the second one. The green dragon seemed stronger and was able to help a little by gripping the stretcher with its small claws. The blue dragon was the easiest to carry, being the smallest of the 3. By the time Lisa had all 3 dragons safely at the top of the canyon, the sun was setting and she was completely exhausted. Lisa made the decision to take the dragons back to her farm where she could care for them properly. She created a makeshift cart using more branches and rope. The dragons huddled together on the cart, making small comforting sounds to each other. The journey back to the farm took most of the night. Lisa pulled the cart slowly along the mountain trail, stopping whenever. The dragons seemed uncomfortable. The creatures never complained or tried to escape. They seemed to trust her completely. Lisa converted her barn into a temporary hospital for the dragons. She laid out soft blankets and set up heat lamps to keep them warm. She prepared food and clean water and organized her medical supplies. Over the next several days, Lisa devoted all her time to caring for the injured dragons. She cleaned their wounds, changed their bandages, and fed them by hand. The dragons grew stronger each day and began to show their personalities. The blue dragon, which Lisa named Storm, was cautious and observant. It watched everything carefully and seemed to be the leader of the group. Storm would test any food before letting the others eat and always positioned itself between them and any potential danger. The green dragon became known as Leaf for its beautiful emerald coloring. Leaf was gentle and affectionate, always nuzzling against Lisa when she came to check on them. This dragon seemed to understand human emotions and would comfort Lisa when she was tired. The golden dragon earned the name Sun because of its bright, cheerful disposition. Despite being the most seriously injured, Sun remained optimistic and playful. This dragon had an infectious joy that lifted the spirits of everyone around it. As the dragons healed, they began to show abilities that amazed Lisa. Storm could create small rain clouds when the plants in the barn looked dry. Leaf could make flowers bloom just by touching them. Sun could warm the entire barn with its presence. Lisa realized she had stumbled into something extraordinary. These were not just beautiful creatures, they were intelligent, magical beings with powers beyond anything she had imagined. The dragons were unlike any animal she had ever encountered. Word had not yet reached Lisa about the alien hunters who had been trying to capture dragons for months. She had no idea that what she had accomplished through simple kindness was what an entire team of professional hunters had failed to do with advanced technology. The 3 young dragons were recovering quickly under Lisa's care. They had formed a strong bond with their rescuer and showed no desire to leave the safety and comfort of her farm. Their trust in her was complete and unshakable. Lisa found herself changing too. Her connection with the dragons was awakening abilities she never knew she possessed. She could sense their thoughts and emotions, and they seemed to understand her perfectly even without words. The peaceful life Lisa had built for herself was about to become much more complicated, but for now she was simply happy to have saved 3 beautiful creatures and gained 3 loyal friends. The real challenges were still to come. 3 weeks had passed since Lisa rescued the dragon hatchlings, and their recovery was remarkable. The broken bones had healed cleanly, and the deep cuts had closed without leaving scars. The dragons were now healthy, active, and growing rapidly. Storm, Leaf, and Sun had become much larger than when Lisa first found them. Each dragon was now the size of a small horse, but they retained the gentle nature they had shown from the beginning. They followed Lisa everywhere around the farm like devoted pets. Lisa had learned that the dragons were incredibly intelligent. They understood complex instructions, could solve simple problems, and seemed to have their own language of clicks, whistles, and soft growls. They communicated with each other constantly, and had begun including Lisa in their conversations. The dragons had also developed a daily routine that centered around helping Lisa with her farm work. Storm would use its weather abilities to bring rain when the crops needed water. The dragon could create precise cloud formations that would release exactly the right amount of moisture. Leaf had become the garden specialist. Using its connection to plant life, the green dragon could make vegetables grow faster and healthier than normal. The crops were now producing twice their usual yield, with vegetables that were larger and more flavorful than anything Lisa had grown before. Sun provided heat and light during the cold mountain nights. The golden dragon could control its body temperature, allowing it to warm the entire barn or greenhouse when needed. This meant Lisa could grow crops year-round instead of just during the warm season. The 3 dragons had distinct personalities that became more apparent as they grew stronger. Storm was the natural leader, cautious and protective. The blue dragon was always alert for danger and would position itself between Lisa and anything that might be a threat. Leaf was the most affectionate dragon, constantly seeking physical contact with Lisa and the other dragons. This green dragon seemed to understand emotions deeply and would comfort anyone who was sad or worried. Leaf had a calming presence that made everyone feel peaceful. Sun was the entertainer of the group, always finding ways to play and have fun. The golden dragon would chase butterflies, roll in the grass, and perform aerial tricks, now that its wing had healed completely. Sun could make anyone laugh with its silly antics. Lisa discovered that her own abilities were growing stronger through her connection with the dragons. She could now sense the health of plants and animals from a distance. She could predict weather changes before they happened and communicate with various creatures around the farm. The bond between Lisa and her 3 dragons was unlike anything described in books or stories. It was deeper than pet ownership and more equal than a master-servant relationship. They were true companions who cared for each other completely. Lisa began to understand that her mixed heritage was the key to this connection. Her elf blood gave her a natural affinity for magical creatures, while her human side provided the determination and courage needed to rescue and care for the dragons. News from the outside world occasionally reached Lisa through traveling merchants. She learned that alien hunters had been active in the area trying to capture dragons. The merchants spoke of a failed expedition that had spent months without catching a single creature. Lisa felt a chill of fear when she heard these stories. She realized how valuable and rare her dragon friends were. The thought of anyone trying to capture Storm, Leaf, and Sun filled her with protective anger. She decided to keep the dragons hidden from strangers. The farm was isolated enough that visitors were rare, but Lisa began taking extra precautions. She created hiding places around the property where the dragons could disappear quickly if needed. She also started training them to respond to silent hand signals. The dragons seemed to understand the danger without being told. They would hide automatically whenever they heard unfamiliar vehicles approaching the farm. Their intelligence and loyalty made them easy to train, and they learned quickly. Lisa also began teaching the dragons about human technology and weapons. She wanted them to understand the threats they might face. The dragons were fascinated by her explanations and asked many questions through their unique communication methods. Storm was particularly interested in learning about flying vehicles and weapons. The blue dragon studied Lisa drawings and diagrams with intense concentration. This knowledge would help the dragon avoid or defend against technological threats. Leaf focused on learning about different types of humans and their motivations. The green dragon wanted to understand which people could be trusted and which ones posed dangers. This empathy and insight made Leaf an excellent judge of character. Sun was most interested in learning about communication and language. The golden dragon began experimenting with making human-like sounds and even managed to say a few simple words. This breakthrough amazed Lisa and opened new possibilities for their relationship. As autumn arrived, the dragons had grown to their full adult size. They were magnificent creatures with wingspans of over 20 feet. Storm was sleek and powerful with scales that reflected light like water. Leaf was graceful and elegant, with coloring that shifted from emerald to jade. Sun was the most striking of the three, with golden scales that seemed to glow from within. This dragon radiated warmth and joy that could be felt from across the farm. All three dragons were beautiful, beyond description. The dragons' flight abilities had fully developed and they could now soar high above the mountains. They would take turns flying patrol around the farm, watching for potential threats. They always flew at night to avoid being seen. By passing aircraft, Lisa often joined them on these flights, riding on Storm's back, while Leaf and Sun flew alongside. The experience of flying with dragons was magical, and gave Lisa a perspective on her world that few humans had ever experienced. The relationship between Lisa and her dragons had become legendary among the local wildlife. All the animals in the area seemed to know about the special bond. Birds would come to the farm with messages from distant places. Wild creatures would seek help when they were injured. Lisa Farm became an unofficial sanctuary for hurt and lost animals. The dragons would help her care for these visitors, using their abilities to heal and comfort creatures in need. Word spread through the animal community about the safe haven Lisa had created, but this growing reputation also brought risks. The more animals that visited the farm, the more likely it was that someone would notice the unusual activity. Lisa knew she needed to be even more careful about keeping her dragons secret. The alien hunters were still active in the region according to the latest reports from travelers. They had not given up their mission and were becoming more desperate as time passed. Lisa worried that their methods might become more extreme and dangerous. Lisa began making plans for what she would do if the hunters discovered her farm. She identified escape routes through the mountains and prepared supply caches in case they needed to hide for extended periods. The dragons participated in these preparations, understanding the seriousness of the situation. The three dragons had become so much more than pets or even friends. They were family members who shared Lisa life completely. They worked together, ate together, and protected each other with fierce loyalty. The bond between them was unbreakable. Lisa often wondered what would have happened if she had not been in the canyon that day. The dragons would certainly have died from their injuries. Instead, they had become her closest companions and the most important part of her life. The peaceful existence they had built together was precious but fragile. Lisa knew that eventually they would face challenges that would test their bond. The alien hunters were still out there and other threats might emerge as well. For now, though, Lisa was content to enjoy the daily life she shared with Stormleaf and Sun. The farm was thriving. The dragons were healthy and happy, and their friendship grew stronger with each passing day. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Commander Zik stood in the center of his command ship, reviewing intelligence reports that had taken months to gather. His crew had finally discovered something useful after their many failures. A small human farm in the southern valley showed signs of unusual dragon activity. The reports came from automated surveillance drones that had been secretly monitoring the planet for weeks. Thermal imaging showed large flying creatures visiting the farm at night. Electromagnetic scans detected energy, signatures consistent with dragon abilities. Zix felt excitement building in his chest for the first time in months. This isolated farm might be the key to finally capturing dragons. The human who lived there could be using the creatures somehow, or might have information about dragon locations. Captain Vorth entered the command room, carrying additional data from their spy satellites. The images showed a single human female, living alone on a small agricultural property. The farm was perfectly positioned for a stealth operation with no nearby settlements to interfere. Zix examined the satellite photos carefully. The farm looked innocent enough with simple buildings and vegetable gardens, But the thermal readings told a different story. Large heat signatures appeared regularly around the property at night, suggesting the presence of multiple dragons. The alien commander began planning the most important mission of his career. This operation would either save his reputation or destroy it completely. He could not afford another failure. His clients were demanding results and time was running out. Zix assembled his best team of 12 hunters, each one equipped with the latest capture technology. They loaded their ship with energy, nets, stun weapons, tranquilizer darts, and containment units designed specifically for large flying creatures. The plan was simple. They would surround the farm during daylight hours when dragons were less active. The team would search every building and hiding place until they found their targets. The isolated location meant no witnesses and no interference. Lisa Walker was working in her garden when Storm suddenly lifted its head and growled softly. The blue dragon was staring toward the eastern sky where a small metallic object was visible in the distance. The object was moving too slowly to be a normal aircraft. Leaf and Sun immediately responded to Storm's warning. All three dragons moved closer to Lisa, with their wings partially spread. This was their protective formation that they used whenever they sensed danger approaching the farm. Lisa shaded her eyes and studied the strange aircraft. It was unlike any vehicle she had seen before. The design was clearly alien with angular surfaces and no visible propulsion system. The craft was heading directly toward her farm, moving quickly. Lisa gave the dragons their emergency hand signals. All three creatures immediately disappeared into their hidden shelters around the property. Lisa had spent months preparing these hiding places, and the dragons could reach them in seconds. Lisa walked calmly toward her house, trying to appear like a normal farmer going about her daily routine. Inside, she was terrified, but she knew that showing fear would only make things worse. She needed to protect her dragon friends no matter what happened. The alien ship landed in the field next to Lisa's house with barely a sound. 12 armed figures emerged wearing advanced armor and carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Lisa had never seen aliens before, but she recognized them as the hunters the merchants had described. Commander Zix approached Lisa's house with confident strides. He was tall and intimidating with gray skin and 4 arms. Each arm held a different piece of equipment. His black eyes seemed to look right through Lisa as if she was not important. Lisa stepped onto her porch and waited for the aliens to speak. She kept her expression neutral and her hands visible. She had rehearsed this moment many times in her mind, but facing real alien hunters was more frightening than she had imagined. Zix spoke in heavily accented human language, demanding that Lisa surrender any dragon she might be hiding. He explained that dragon hunting was legal under galactic law, and that Lisa would be imprisoned if she interfered with their mission. Lisa looked directly into the alien commander's eyes and calmly denied having any dragons. She explained that she was just a farmer who grew vegetables for local markets. She invited the aliens to search her property if they doubted her words. Zix was suspicious but impressed by Lisa's composure. Most humans became nervous when confronted by armed aliens. Lisa seemed genuinely unconcerned, which made him wonder if she was telling the truth or if she was an excellent actress. The alien hunting team began their search methodically. They scanned every building with sophisticated equipment that could detect hidden life forms. They found evidence of dragons, including scales, claw marks, and unusual energy readings, but no actual creatures. Lisa watched the search quietly, while silently praying that her dragons would remain hidden. The aliens tore apart her house and barn looking for secret compartments. They dug holes in her garden and dismantled her equipment. Storm, Leaf, and Sun were using their abilities to stay hidden. Storm created thick fog that blocked thermal imaging. Leaf grew dense vegetation to create visual barriers. Sun bent light around their hiding places, making them effectively invisible to all sensors. The alien hunters became increasingly frustrated as their search continued. They knew dragons had been at this location recently but could find no trace of living creatures. Their expensive equipment was useless against abilities they did not understand. Captain Vorth reported to Zix that the search had covered every possible hiding place on the property twice. The dragons were either gone or they possessed stealth abilities beyond anything in their databases. Both possibilities were equally disappointing. Zix questioned Lisa more aggressively, demanding details about any unusual animals she might have seen. He threatened her with arrest and imprisonment. If she was lying about dragon activity in the area, Lisa maintained her calm demeanor and repeated her simple story. Hours passed as the aliens continued their search. They expanded their investigation to include the surrounding forest and mountain areas. Their scanners detected old dragon signs, but nothing recent enough to indicate current activity. The alien commander was faced with another failure, but this time felt different. The evidence clearly showed dragon presence, but the creatures had vanished without a trace. This level of stealth suggested intelligence and planning beyond mere animal instincts. As evening approached, Zix made the difficult decision to end the search. His team was exhausted and their equipment was showing no results. The dragons had either escaped before their arrival or possessed abilities that made them impossible to detect. Zix confronted Lisa one final time, warning her that interfering with dragon hunting was a serious crime. He promised to return with more equipment and personnel if he discovered she had been lying. The threat was clear and menacing. Lisa stood on her porch, watching the alien ship disappear into the sky. She remained perfectly still until she was certain they were gone. Then, she collapsed onto her steps as the stress and fear finally overwhelmed her. Storm was the first dragon to emerge from hiding, followed quickly by Leaf and Sun. All three creatures surrounded Lisa with gentle nuzzling and soft, comforting sounds. They had sensed her terror during the confrontation and wanted to reassure her. Lisa hugged each dragon tightly, grateful that they had all survived the encounter. The hiding system had worked perfectly, but she knew the aliens would return. They had found too much evidence to simply give up on this location. The dragons seemed to understand the seriousness of their situation. They gathered around Lisa, making quiet planning sounds as if discussing their next moves. The bond between them had been tested, and proven strong. Lisa realized that their peaceful life on the farm was over. The alien hunters would return with better equipment and more personnel. Next time they might not be so lucky. The dragons would need to find a new home somewhere safer, but as she looked at Stormleaf and Sun, Lisa felt a surge of determination. These magnificent creatures had trusted her completely. They had risked their lives by staying hidden instead of flying away. She would not abandon them now. The first confrontation with the alien hunters had ended in success, but Lisa knew it was only the beginning. The real battle for the freedom and safety of her dragon friends was just starting. Commander Zix returned to his ship consumed with anger and frustration. The failed search at the human farm had been his last chance to salvage the mission. His reputation was ruined and his career was over, unless he could find those dragons deep. In the ship database, Zix discovered something that changed everything. The human female at the farm was not ordinary. Her genetic scans showed mixed heritage, half human and half space elf. This combination was extremely rare and might explain her connection to magical creatures. Space elves were known throughout the galaxy for their ability to communicate with dragons and other mystical beings. If this human had inherited those abilities, she could be controlling the dragons, instead of simply hiding them. This revelation gave Zix new hope. The alien commander decided on a desperate final plan. He would return to the farm with overwhelming force and capture both the human and her dragons. The mixed heritage female would be valuable to his clients as a dragon trainer and controller. Lisa spent sleepless nights planning her next moves. The alien hunters would return soon, and next time they would be prepared for dragons with stealth abilities. She needed to get Stormleaf and Sun far away from the farm before the hunters came back. The three dragons sensed Lisa's distress and gathered around her each night, offering comfort and support. They seemed to understand that difficult decisions lay ahead. Their gentle presence helped Lisa think clearly despite her fear. Lisa considered many options. She could try to relocate the dragons to a remote mountain cave, or she could attempt to take them off planet entirely. But both plans had serious problems. The dragons were too large to transport easily, and they had no experience hiding from advanced technology. Storm surprised Lisa by approaching with something in its mouth. The blue dragon had been exploring the mountains and found an old crashed spaceship hidden in a deep canyon. The ship appeared to be abandoned but might still have working communication equipment. Lisa followed Storm to the crash site and discovered that the ship had been there for many years. The hull was damaged, but the interior was intact. Most importantly, the communication system still functioned. This gave Lisa an idea for getting help using the ship's radio. Lisa sent messages across multiple frequencies, hoping to reach other humans in the area. She explained her situation and asked for assistance with relocating 3 endangered creatures away from alien hunters. To her amazement, Lisa received several responses from human settlements across the planet. Word had already spread about the failed alien hunting expedition. Many humans were angry that aliens were trying to capture native creatures for profit. A group of human pilots volunteered to help transport the dragons to safety. They had fast ships that could outrun alien vessels, and they knew hidden bases where the dragons could live peacefully. The rescue mission was planned for the following night, but Commander Zix had been monitoring human communications and intercepted Lisa messages. He learned about the planned rescue and decided to attack before the human ships could arrive. The final confrontation would happen at dawn. Lisa woke to the sound of multiple aircraft approaching the farm. Through her window, she could see a massive alien warship surrounded by smaller attack vessels. The hunters had returned with enough firepower to level the entire area. Stormleaf and Sun were already awake and alert. Having sensed the approaching danger, all 3 dragons positioned themselves protectively around Lisa, ready to defend their human friend with their lives if necessary. Commander Zix's voice boomed across the farm through powerful speakers. He demanded that Lisa surrender herself and her dragons immediately. Any resistance would result in the destruction of the farm and everything around it. The threat was clear and terrifying. Lisa walked outside to face the alien force. The sky was filled with weapons pointed at her small farm. She felt incredibly small and helpless, but refused to show fear. Her dragons stood behind her. Their wings spread wide in a display of defiance. Zix landed his personal craft near Lisa's house and approached with a squad of heavily armed soldiers. He was confident that overwhelming force would succeed where stealth had failed. The human would have no choice but to surrender. Lisa looked up at the alien commander and spoke in a clear, steady voice. She told him that the dragons were free beings who had chosen to stay with her. They were not pets or property to be captured. And Sold Zix laughed at Lisa's words and explained that under Galactic, law dragons were classified as valuable animals without rights. He had legal authority to capture them, and she had no power to stop him. But as Zix spoke, the sound of approaching engines filled the air. Human rescue ships were arriving from all directions. Dozens of vessels piloted by volunteers who had come to help Lisa and her dragons. The alien commander realized he was now outnumbered, but his ships had superior weapons and armor. He ordered his forces to prepare for battle, confident that advanced alien technology would defeat primitive human vessels. Lisa watched in amazement as human pilots from across the planet positioned themselves between the alien hunters and her farm. They were risking their lives to protect creatures they had never seen simply because it was the right thing to do. Stormleaf and Sun took flight, circling above the farm as the 2 forces faced each other. The dragons' magnificent forms inspired the human pilots and struck fear into the alien hunters who had never seen dragons in full flight. The standoff lasted for tense minutes as both sides waited for the other to make the first move. Lisa stood in the center of it, all the focal point of a conflict that would determine the fate of her dragon friend's commander. Zix finally lost patience and ordered his ships to attack. But as the alien weapons powered up, something unexpected happened. Storm began creating a massive thunderstorm above the battlefield. Lightning struck alien ships, disrupting their electronics, while torrential rain reduced visibility to near zero. Leaf caused dense forest to grow around the alien positions, trapping their ground forces. Sun created blinding light that overwhelmed alien targeting systems. The dragon's abilities combined perfectly to neutralize the technological advantages of the alien hunters. Their natural powers proved more effective than any human weapons could have been, caught off guard by abilities they did not understand. The alien forces found themselves unable to fight effectively. Their advanced weapons were useless against enemies who could control weather plants and light itself. Commander Zix watched his final mission collapse in complete failure. His ships were grounded by lightning. His soldiers were lost in sudden forests, and his scanners were blinded by dragon magic. The human rescue ships took advantage of the confusion to land near Lisa Farm. Pilots rushed to help her and the dragons board transport vessels while the aliens struggled against forces beyond their comprehension. Lisa hugged Stormleaf and Sun one final time at their home before leading them to the rescue ships. The dragons followed her willingly, trusting her to guide them to safety once again. As the human ships prepared to depart, Lisa looked back at Commander Zix. The alien commander stood defeated among his disabled vessels, his reputation and career destroyed by his failure to understand that some bonds cannot be broken by force. The rescue fleet launched into space, carrying Lisa and her 3 dragon companions toward a new life on a distant world where they could live freely without fear of hunters or collectors. News of the failed alien hunting expedition spread across the galaxy. The story of how a simple human farmer had gained the loyalty of 3 dragons through kindness, while professional hunters failed. Despite superior technology became legendary, other alien hunting operations were canceled, as clients realized that dragons could not be captured by force. The creatures would only bond with those who treated them with respect and compassion. Lisa settled on a peaceful colony world where dragons were protected by law. Stormleaf and Sun thrived in their new environment, using their abilities to help the human colonists build a better society. The bond between Lisa and her dragons remained as strong as ever. They had faced their greatest challenge together and emerged victorious. Their friendship had proven that understanding and love were more powerful than weapons and technology. Years later, when young humans asked Lisa how she had tamed 3 dragons, she would always correct them. She had never tamed anything. Instead, she had simply been kind to 3 injured creatures, and they had chosen to be her friends. The failed alien hunting expedition became a cautionary tale told throughout the galaxy about the dangers of underestimating the power of genuine friendship and the strength that comes from treating all beings with dignity and respect. Commander Zix eventually returned to his home world where he was stripped of rank and barred from hunting expeditions. He spent his remaining years wondering how a simple human farmer had accomplished what his entire professional team could not. Lisa Walker and her 3 dragon companions lived happily together for many decades, proving that some of the strongest bonds in the universe are formed not through force or technology, but through simple acts of kindness and compassion.